My wife mocked my music career for years, so I wrote a song about her betrayal, and it went viral. While she works retail watching me on screens, I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I've been chasing music since I was 15, not just strumming in a garage or writing lyrics on napkins, though I did plenty of that too, but long shifts, unloading freight at night, just so I could afford studio time during the day. I'd sleep in my car outside open mic venues. Guitar case crammed between fast food wrappers and demo CDs. I wasn't trying to be famous. I just didn't know how to be anything else. Then I met Ella. She was magnetic, sharp-tongued, sharp-dressed, and unapologetically grounded. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. She asked what I did, and I said, half joking, "I'm a broke artist with big dreams." She raised an eyebrow and said, "That's hot. At least you're chasing something." We started seeing each other after that. She liked that I had fire, as she put it. She'd sit on the floor of my tiny studio apartment, legs crossed, sipping wine while I played her rough drafts of unfinished songs. "You better remember me when you win a Grammy," she'd tease. I remember thinking, finally, someone who sees me. After 6 months, we moved in together. She had a stable retail management job. I worked nights. We split bills right down the middle, cooked late dinners, watched reruns of old sitcoms, talked about someday moving to a bigger city where I could make it, she said she believed. In my music, like no one ever had, but there were moments, ones that stuck. Like when she introduced me to her friends as a musician, for now, or when she sighed a little too hard after I came home late from a show that barely paid gas money. I brushed it off. Told myself I was just insecure. She loved me. She said so all the time. But love can look a lot like tolerance when you're not paying attention, and tolerance has a time limit. It started with sarcasm, not the funny kind that cuts under the skin and pretends to be playful. I'd be tuning my guitar before a gig, and Ella would walk by and say, "Break a leg, rock star. Maybe tonight's the night you get discovered at a bar with 3 drunk guys and a broken mic." Then she'd laugh, kiss my cheek and say, "Kidding," but it never really felt like a joke at first. I defended her in my head. She was just being realistic. I knew I wasn't exactly rolling in offers or blowing up online. I thought maybe I needed the push. Maybe she was keeping me grounded. But over time, her jokes felt more like jabs, and her support started sounding more like shame dressed up as concern. She'd say things like, "You know, if you just got a regular job, we could actually save for a wedding, or a car that doesn't stall every other morning. Or, you've been chasing this for over a decade, babe. At what point do you realize maybe it's just a hobby?" I started pulling away from gigs, telling myself I needed more hours at work anyway. She never directly asked me to quit music, but the air around it grew heavy. Awkward silences when I brought up new song ideas, ear-rolls when I played her a demo. Once, I found one of my flyers in the trash under takeout boxes. She said it must have fallen. She still said she believed in me. But the tone changed. It wasn't, "I love how you follow your dreams" anymore. It was, "I love you even though you haven't made it yet." And that "even though" started to echo in my chest. I stopped writing for a while, but the music didn't stop. It just got quieter, waiting for a moment to scream it was her cousin's engagement. Party. One of those backyard setups with fairy lights and catered sliders, where everyone's pretending their life is better than it actually is. I showed up straight from a shift grease, still under my nails, boots caked in dust. Ella didn't seem thrilled to see me. She handed me a drink and said, "At least try not to talk about music tonight, okay?" I laughed it off, but my stomach tightened. Midway through the night, someone asked what I did. Before I could open my mouth, Ella jumped in. "He writes songs and plays guitar?" "Still chasing the dream," she said, smiling like it was endearing. "We're just waiting for the moment he gets discovered. Any day now, right, babe?" Everyone chuckled. I froze. Her cousin raised a glass and said, "Hey, maybe you'll write the next Despacito. Just don't forget us when you're famous." More laughter. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. But inside, something cracked later. In the car, I asked, "Did you really have to say it like that?" She blinked at me. "What? It was a joke. You're being sensitive. You made me sound like a charity case," she scoffed. "Oh, please. If I didn't support you, we wouldn't even have a roof over our heads. You are a charity case. I just happen to love you." That was the first time I realized she didn't admire my dreams anymore. She tolerated them, Barely she loved me. Maybe, but it was the kind of love that expected me to change, to shrink, to settle, to give it up, and be someone easier to live with. I remember staring out the window the whole drive home, wondering how long I'd been lying to myself and how much of me I'd already given up just to keep her happy after that night. Something in me shut off. I stopped talking about music, stopped bringing my guitar into the living room. I tucked it away in the closet, next to old notebooks full of lyrics I couldn't bear to reread. Instead, I started picking up extra shifts at the warehouse. 10-hour days turned into 12. Overtime became my new rhythm. Ella seemed relieved. She started planning more, talking about upgrading our apartment, maybe getting a used SUV, even looking at wedding venues again. She liked this new version of me, reliable, predictable, quiet. She said, "This feels like real life now, like we're finally on the same page." I nodded and smiled, because I didn't know how to say, "I feel like a ghost in my own body." We got married 6 months later. Courthouse ceremony. No music, just paperwork, a quick kiss, and a photo where I'm smiling but my eyes aren't. That night, she wanted to celebrate. I remember the cheap champagne and her dancing barefoot in our kitchen. I sat at the table watching her, feeling like a passenger in a life I never meant to board. She poured me a drink and said, "See, this is what stability looks like." And I almost believed her. But every time I walked past that closet, I felt something tug at me, not just guilt grief. Like I'd buried something alive and could still hear it scratching under the door. I told myself this was temporary, that once we saved enough, I'd get back to it, that love meant sacrifice, and this was mine. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't building a future, I was erasing myself from it, and Ella didn't notice. Or maybe she did. It started because of Marcus, the guy I worked with on loading docks. He heard me humming to myself one night while we were stacking pallets. "You sing?" he asked, tossing me a bottle of water. I shrugged. "Used to." He stared for a second, then said, "My cousin's got a home studio. Cheap rates. You should lay something down." I laughed it off at first, but that night I sat in the parking lot long after my shift ended, just thinking about the songs that still played in my head even when I tried to ignore them. About the old me, the one who used to believe in something. A week later, I called Marcus's cousin. The studio was small, just a converted basement with some foam padding and a dusty mic. But stepping into that space felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a cave. My voice cracked on the first take. I hadn't sung in months. But the producer, Kev, just nodded and said, "It's raw. Keep going." I started sneaking in once a week, paid cash, told Ella I was helping Marcus with extra inventory shifts. It was the first time in years I felt alive. Asterisk, Kev encouraged me to write something real, something I hadn't said out loud. So I did. I wrote a track called Retail Romance. The lyrics weren't subtle. Lines like she called it love while sharpening the knife and built a home just to cage my sound. It was petty. It was honest. It was mine when I played it back through the studio monitors. I felt my chest crack open, for the first time in a long time. I wasn't asking for permission to feel something. I was just letting it out. And I didn't know it yet, but that song, that one angry, messy confession, it would change everything. I should have known better than to leave my backpack out. It was a Thursday night. I came home late, said I was beat from a double shift. Ella was already in bed, half watching some reality show with the volume low. I tossed my bag on the kitchen chair, grabbed a shower, and tried not to think about the flash drive inside my latest demo, still saved under the name RR_final. The next morning, she was cold. Didn't say much. Didn't pack my lunch like usual. Just stared at me over her coffee mug. I asked, "Everything okay?" She said nothing. When I got home, my backpack was unzipped. She waited until after dinner, so she said, leaning against the counter, "You've been working on music again." I froze. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket. "You left it out." I was curious. I thought maybe you'd finally written something about me. I didn't say a word. She crossed her arms. "Retail romance, huh? Real original. Making me the villain in some angsty breakup ballad while I work double shifts to pay bills you can't." My voice cracked. "It's not about you. It's about how I felt." She laughed, cruel and sharp. "No, it's exactly about me. Don't act like you're some tortured poet. You're just bitter," I asked you to grow the hell up. She told me to delete it. Said if I ever played it for anyone, we were done. I stared at her, this woman who once said she loved my fire, now trying to stamp it out with her heel that night. When she went to sleep, I sat in the dark with my laptop open, stared at the upload page on SoundCloud. My heart was pounding like I'd just committed a crime. I clicked publish. Username, Dead Strings Track. Retail romance, and with that one click, I stopped asking for her permission. I didn't expect anyone to hear it. I figured maybe a few strangers would stumble across it, maybe drop a pity like maybe nothing at all. But something happened in that first 48 hours that I still can't explain. Someone shared the link on Reddit. Then someone else made a TikTok using the chorus, "She kissed my lips while mocking my name." Built a home where I'd take the blame, and then it exploded. Within a week, Retail Romance had 40,000 plays. Then 100,000 duets started popping up, people crying while lip-syncing in their cars. Girls stitched it with videos saying, "This was me with my ex." Guys left comments like, "Bro said what we all felt but couldn't say out loud." I watched it all in silence, sitting in the warehouse break room with my phone under the table. Every ding of a new notification felt like oxygen. Ella didn't notice at first. She still thought I was just working late, still rolled her eyes when I hummed in the kitchen, but the numbers kept growing. A YouTuber included the track in a Songs That Deserve More Attention video. A Spotify playlist curator messaged me, "This hits deep. Want to upload the clean version?" By week 3, Ella found out. She was scrolling through TikTok when she stopped, went pale, and turned the screen to me. "That's your voice? That's our story." I just nodded. She lost it, said I'd betrayed her, said I humiliated her to the world, that people were making her into a monster and I just let it happen. She demanded I take it down, said it was our private life, twisted for clout. But I didn't flinch. I had bled in silence for years. That song was the first time I let the world see the bruises. And I wasn't going to apologize for finally being heard. About a month after the song blew up, I got a DM from a podcaster named Leo. He ran a YouTube channel that featured anonymous interviews with artists behind viral hits. His message was simple. "Your track hit me hard. If you're willing to talk about the story behind it, no face, just voice. I think people need to hear it." I hesitated. Part of me still felt like a fraud, like I didn't deserve to be in the same space as real musicians. But another part, the part that used to sleep in cars and scribble lyrics on napkins, whispered, "Say yes." So I did. We recorded over Zoom, no video, just my voice, cracked with nerves and truth. I told him everything, how I gave up my music, how I tried to be the man Ella wanted, how I shrunk until there was nothing left of me. I didn't name her, didn't slander, I just told the truth. The video dropped 3 days later. Within hours, the comment section turned into a confessional booth. People shared stories about partners who mocked their art, families who told them dreams were childish, lives spent living small for someone else's comfort. Ella saw it that night. She walked into the living room, eyes bloodshot, holding her phone. "He told the whole world," she said, voice hollow. "No," I replied. I told myself, and they just happened to listen. She stormed out. That was the last night she slept in our apartment. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. I felt light, like years of silence had finally lifted off my chest, and somewhere in that quiet, I heard music again. I thought speaking my truth would set me free. But truth has a cost. Within a week of the interview, Ella's sister sent me a string of texts, furious, accusing me of publicly humiliating the family. Her parents called me a narcissist with a guitar. I didn't reply, but the fallout didn't stop there. Ella moved out and drained half our joint savings enough to cripple my rent for months. I came home to find the living room half empty, couch gone, plates missing, TV yanked from the wall. She even took the rug we bought on our anniversary trip. Gone. Then came the label, emails, small indie reps asking for meetings. But I was too overwhelmed to respond. I didn't know who to trust. I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor, eating canned soup, surrounded by unopened fan mail and eviction warnings. The music was everywhere, but my life was falling apart. The lowest point came at a small gig Kev set up. It was in a bar where the lights barely worked and the crowd was loud. I tried to play Retail Romance live for the first time. Midway through, my guitar string snapped. I stopped. My throat closed, and I just stood there frozen, not from embarrassment, but grief. I stumbled off stage and locked myself in the restroom for 20 minutes. I looked in the mirror, eyes bloodshot, chest heaving, and thought, what the hell am I doing? This was supposed to be my turning point, but it felt like my ruin. That night, I nearly pulled everything offline, nearly gave it all back to the silence I came from, but when I got home, there was an envelope on my doorstep. No return address, just my name, written carefully. Inside, a handwritten note, your song gave me the courage to leave someone who made me feel small. You saved me. Don't stop. I stared at that letter for hours, and for the first time in weeks, I picked up my guitar not for survival, but for purpose. That letter didn't fix everything, but it reminded me why I started. I read it every morning for a week, tucked it into my guitar case like armor. Then I called Kiev and said, I'm ready. Let's finish the EP. We recorded 5 tracks in 6 weeks raw, stripped down, no fancy edits. Just truth. One song was about shame, another about being erased, and one about hope, even if it was messy. Kev called it the most painful project he'd ever loved. I called it Dead Strings Volume 1. I uploaded it quietly. No marketing. Just posted a clip on TikTok of me playing the chorus from Retail Romance in a dim-lit room with the caption, here's the rest of the story. It hit 1 million views in 2 days. People weren't just listening, they were showing up, commenting entire verses, sending their own stories, calling it the Heartbreak album for people who never got to speak. Spotify picked it up for their underground breakthrough playlist. A streamer used one of the tracks in a viral breakup compilation. Suddenly, my follower count wasn't in the dozens, it was in the thousands. Meanwhile, Ella, she'd started working full-time again retail manager at a department store, one of those big chain locations with wall-to-wall TV, screens playing music videos in rotation. One of mine came on, a fan tagged me in a blurry photo. Ella, behind the counter, staring at the screen where my face was glowing, singing words she once said no one would ever care about. And in that moment, I didn't feel vengeful. I felt released, not because she had to see me win, but because I no longer needed her to. The life I begged her to believe in was unfolding. Without her, it came through email, no subject line. Just Ella. For a moment, I just stared at it. My stomach flipped like it used to when she'd message me during the day with a funny meme or a dinner request. But that was a different life, a different me. Still, I clicked. The message started with, I know I don't deserve a response, but I need to say this. She wrote about how the song made her cry the first time she heard it all the way through, how she didn't realize how deeply she'd hurt me, how it was easier to mock my dream than to admit she never believed in her own. She wrote, I'm not proud of how I treated you. I didn't know how to love someone who didn't fit the box I built for my future. And then, if there's even a sliver of you that still cares, maybe we could talk, maybe even write something. Together, I sat with that email open for an hour. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew I wasn't going to say anything. Instead, I closed my laptop, picked up my guitar, and headed to a small venue downtown. Sold out, 100 people, packed shoulder to shoulder. It wasn't Madison Square Garden, but it didn't need to be. Halfway through the set, I introduced Retail Romance. I didn't mention Ella, just played it. The final chorus hit, and the crowd sang with me word for word. She clipped my wings, but I learned to crawl until I flew. I didn't need closure. I didn't need revenge. I had the mic. I had my voice. And for the first time in years, I had peace backstage, smelled like dust, old cables, and nerves. My name was glowing on the marquee outside Dead Strings, sold out, and the crowd was already chanting. Not screaming, not rowdy, chanting. Like they weren't here to party. They were here to listen. Kev gave me a nod as I adjusted my mic. You ready for this? I smiled, tucked that same letter from months ago into my back pocket, and said, yeah, I think I am. When the curtain lifted, I walked into the light stand, didn't flinch. Spotlights hit like a warm wave. The audience looked up, phones raised, eyes wide, singing the first lines before I could even strum. Somewhere in the middle of the set, I caught a glimpse of someone near the exit doors. It could have been Ela. Maybe it wasn't, but she didn't stay, and I didn't chase her. I closed the show with Retail Romance, stripped down to just my voice and one acoustic guitar. No backup, no lights dancing around me, just the same words she once said would never matter. As I hit the final chorus, the room didn't cheer. It rose, voices layered with grief, healing, rage, and release. Like they weren't just singing with me, they were singing for themselves. After the final chord, I didn't bow. I just stood there, because I didn't need applause to feel like I'd made it. I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich, but I had reclaimed everything I once buried to make someone else feel comfortable in the silence before the crowd erupted. I whispered into the mic. She tried to write my ending. I rewrote it instead.